Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're continuing the series of episodes that I've been making talking about each original 6 NHL team, talking about what I think their lines are going to look like next year, talking about their noteworthy players, and whether you should consider drafting those players at their current ADP. Before we jump into it, guys, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It would mean a lot to me. Let's jump into the content now right away, and let's start with my projected lines for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So after I record this video, the preseason started and the Leafs released their practice lines. And on the top line, we got Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Marner. On the second line, we got Knies, Nylander, and Calle Yarncroke. On the third line, Domi, Tavares, and Lafferty. Really interesting because Nylander is going to be a center this year, apparently. That's what they want to go with. And Tavares is actually a third-line center, so that's kind of interesting. I mean, ideally, Lafferty wouldn't be playing with Tavares. I think, someone like Nick Robertson might make more sense if he can actually take that step this year. But we'll have to wait and see. But for now, that's pretty interesting. Now, the highest ADP guy on Toronto is Auston Matthews. There's no surprise there, but an ADP of 7.9 is absolutely crazy. He should be the fourth guy off the board. It should be going McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, and Matthews. There should be no other order players should go in because that is the 4 core best players in the NHL. Nobody should be being drafted above Matthews, who is not named McDavid, McKinnon, or Draisaitl. Next is Mitch Marner, currently going in an ADP of 18.2, and I have him ranked at 18 in a non-hits league and 20 in a hits league. So regardless, guys, Mitch Marner is a super safe draft pick, and right wing position is one of the rarer ones, so grabbing him early in the draft is definitely not a bad idea, like Mitch Marner at that ADP. Next, I have William Nylander with an ADP of 26.9, and in my opinion, that is too early for William Nylander. He's never been that great of a player where he ranked in the top 30 fantasy players. But anyway, this year I have Nylander ranked at 36th best player in a non-hits league. So the fact that his ADP is at 26.9, I would personally avoid him and let one of your Leaf fan friends draft him this year. Next is John Tavares, and he's more valuable in hits league than in non-hits league. He does hit more than you guys probably think he does. In hits league, I have him as a 33rd best player and 44th best player in non-hits league. So in hits league, this is a decent ranking for him. In a non-hits league, you probably want to go elsewhere because, a natural center is a really easy position to be drafting. So Tavares isn't necessarily the best pick to be making. Honestly, in either type of leagues, there's probably some better wingers or defensemen you can be grabbing at this range, but definitely not a bad pick if you do end up picking John Tavares. Then I have Ilya Samsonov with an ADP of 81.6, and I think Ilya Samsonov, this is a perfectly fine ADP for him. I don't think it's a terrible one. I don't think it's a great one either. I think Samsonov is definitely the starter in Toronto for now. I think that Joseph Woll will have to play a lot of really good hockey games in order to kind of dethrone that or start kind of any kind of goaltender split. So for now, I definitely think Samsonov's job is perfectly safe, but I'm not as confident as Max is when it comes to saying that Woll is not going to, overtake him as a starter at some point in the year. But for now, Samsonov is a pretty safe draft pick. And I think he's a decent pick if you want to pick a goalie over here. And then Tyler Bertuzzi is someone that I'm liking this year. He's probably going to play on the second line or the first line with those really good Leafs players, right? Not too worried about that. So Tyler Bertuzzi, realistically, could have a much better year than last year. I'm expecting him to have a bounce back year and look more like the way he looked a couple years ago rather than last season. And I think he's going to, finish probably around that ADP of 131. So if you want to draft him there, he's probably a pretty safe bet unless he gets injured. So you really got to cross your fingers and hope that the guy can stay healthy this year. The next guy with the lowest ADP is Morgan Rielly. And that's kind of surprising to me because he hasn't really been that relevant fantasy-wise for a couple years now. 43 points last year in 79 games, but his peripherals aren't really that great. So having him ranked at this ADP is crazy. And even if he was getting top power play again this year, this ADP would be high for him. And in all likelihood, guys, I think Klingberg was signed to play on the top power play in Toronto. So Rielly probably gets demoted from there, and that kind of makes him lose any kind of value he had. So I would strongly encourage you to not be drafting Morgan Rielly this year because you're probably going to be wasting a pick, especially if he's not playing on that top Leafs power play. The next guy on this list is Max Domi, who had triple eligibility last year, which was awesome. Doesn't have it this year. Could maybe gain it back. We'll see. But for now, I can't really encourage you guys to draft Max Domi, because as of right now, I haven't seen the preseason, and in my opinion, he's probably going to be a third liner to start off with. If he's not, if he starts on the top line or the second line with Matthews or with Tavares and Nylander, actually Nylander might be playing center this year apparently, so we'll see about that. But if he starts on either of those two lines, Domi definitely can have some value. But as of right now, I'm projecting him on the third line, so I can't be recommending him just yet. Hey there, future Julian here. Domi actually being paired with Tavares switches things up a little bit, makes me a little bit more willing to draft him. But let's wait and see if they actually keep Nylander at center throughout the entire preseason before we make a decision. Otherwise, if they put Nylander back on the wing, Tavares probably moves back up, plays with Nylander and with Knies, and then Domi might not have a top 6 role. So let's just make sure that he's going to be playing with Tavares. Let's keep a close eye on those Leafs lines throughout the training camp. As for Matthew Knies right now, he's starting on a line with Nylander and Järnkrok. I don't mind that line at all. I think it might, actually be a pretty good line. We'll see if that ends up sticking. I'm still not 100% convinced that Nylander is going to start at center this year, but if he looks good in the training camp, he probably will. And Knies actually might have some value playing with a great young player like William Nylander. He's definitely a risk though, but he is going super late, so if you want to throw a late pick at him, there's definitely some good upside over there. Next I have John Klingberg. He's going really late in the ADP of almost 160 overall. Last year obviously didn't have the greatest year with about a point every couple of games or so, with not great peripherals either, but he did look much better once he went to Minnesota, and especially in the playoffs and the short amount of playoffs they did play, Klingberg looked alright. I think Toronto might be the exact right place he needs to be to have a nice bounce back here. Obviously, Anaheim is not a good team. And so, I mean, the amount of good that he could do in Anaheim was pretty limited, but I think that Toronto might be able to revitalize his career a little bit. And I think it's not that big of a risk considering how late he's currently going in drafts. Definitely someone that, if I haven't taken too many risks in my draft, absolutely will take a shot at the end of my draft, because you could end up having some nice value on that top Leafs power play. And then finally, I got Joseph Woll and Martin Jones, and I think Martin Jones, unless he plays unreal in the preseason, is probably going to get waived and maybe claimed by somebody else. We'll have to see. Either that or he's going to play in the AHL for Toronto, but Toronto has had really bad luck when it comes to goalies passing through waivers. So we'll have to see, because Joseph Woll also has to pass through waivers, so I think they're not going to waive him. That would be really stupid on their part. He's a young goalie with a lot of promise, so Woll's probably going to be their backup, and then Martin Jones is going to be their third stringer or claimed by somebody else. So Woll, right now I can't suggest you to draft him, but potentially, if he looks really good in the first few weeks, he's someone that I might be suggesting in a future waiver wire video if he starts sneaking up on Samsonov for that starting position. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'll be sure to answer. And have a great day, guys. And I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tech.